Welcome back. Our second debate tonight. For more than 2 months now, anti-hijab protests have been raging on in Iran after the custodial death of 22-year-old Masha Amini. Now, in solidarity with the anti-hijab movement there in Iran, a bunch of women in Kerala burnt their hijabs in full public glare in Kozhikode.
Unprecedented scenes in India. Group of women who got together in Kerala's Kozhikode and set a hijab on fire. They also held posters and raised slogans in support of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old who died in custody of Iran's morality police for allegedly not wearing her hijab properly. Mahsa's death had sparked a wave of anger in Iran, which has been raging since September. Women marched the streets without headscarves or burnt them in protest. Some young protesters have even been knocking off or forcefully removing turbans worn by clerics. Extraordinary scenes have been unfolding in Iran against the regime and religious establishment. And now this anger is spreading to India, where hijab has been a hot topic for nearly a year now. Last year, a group of Muslim students in Udupi were banned from entering their classroom wearing the hijab, triggering massive protests. Then in March, the Karnataka High Court upheld the ban on hijab, saying it's not essential to Islam. What followed was a long-drawn legal battle, which only took a new turn after the Supreme Court delivered a split verdict on petitions challenging the hijab ban. But at a time when women are demanding not to wear the hijab, can individual choice override institutional autonomy?
All right, let me now open this up to our full panel. Zeenat Shaukat Ali is Director General of Wisdom Foundation. Barzeen Wagmar is Centre for Iranian Studies at SOAS London. Brinda Adige, social activist. Nishat Ghazala, activist. And Rahul Ishwarotra, an activist, also joining us. Let me start with you, Zeenat Shaukat Ali. So for the last 2 months, women in Iran have been burning their hijabs, they've been cutting their hair, and it's been well documented across. In fact, just earlier last week, the Iranian regime decided to move against over 1,000 women for taking part in these protests and so on. Why shouldn't women in Kerala, like the example that we just cited, the women in Kozhikode who came out yesterday and burnt the hijab, why shouldn't there be more women coming out across India and across the world in support of their Iranian counterparts?
I totally agree with you, Zaka, because I think, I personally stand in solidarity with the extraordinary women of Iran in this ongoing struggle against state-imposed hijab, where women have to put and where women have put their lives at stake, and it has been deplorable. The entire movement of killing these women, where they have been, brutalized, and the entire thing has been very deplorable. So I think that the women across the world must stand for the women, because hijab is a choice. It cannot be a state imposition. What the women are saying, let it be a choice. So those who wish to wear it or those who do not wish to wear it, there must be a distinction, and women must be allowed to do what they want as far as this matter is concerned. And I think I think the United Nations has so many bodies dealing with human rights, dealing with women's issues. These issues have to be taken up at a higher level, because this is 50% of God's creation almost.
No, so let me ask Brinda Adige. I know you're a feminist woman. What is the feminist argument for justifying hijab? I mean, by that token, then all the women in Iran who are burning the hijab should be anti-feminist. I mean, it's a regressive concept. It's a concept that I'm sure was invented by a man for women to follow. How do you justify a regressive practice like the hijab? And why not extend solidarity to the women in Iran who are burning the hijab? Brinda Adige, thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, okay.
Yes, Zaka. Hijab and parda and all of these other customs that subjugate, oppress women are patriarchal and man-made. And you also must understand that this patriarchal customs, traditions have been internalized and women have been conditioned to accept this. But where is that choice that we have made available for women? When you talk of a feminist point, that choice is not just a feminist point, it is a human rights point. It's an issue of freedom and liberty that every woman must feel that she enjoys without any other repercussions, either from her family or from her community, also from the country itself. And like Shaukat Ali put it very beautifully, state imposed necessities or state imposed diktat of wearing something or not wearing something is unacceptable. And we have to really kudos to the women in Kerala, Kozhikode, where they are burning the hijab. They have made a choice. They decide that is what they want to do to show solidarity to women in Iran. And they want to talk about burning that hijab
No,
as a
Brinda,
sign of liberty
you
and
say
freedom.
state-imposed
Now, they have made a
choices.
choice
No,
to
one
do
second.
that.
You're saying state-imposed choices. And I want to ask Rahul Ishwar this. Yes, any imposition by anyone, whether it is state or any other individual, it's absolutely unacceptable in a democracy. But we are then construing that 15, 16, 17-year-old girls, and this is essentially in schools and pre-degree colleges across Karnataka, where this whole hijab matter really came to a fore. They are being totally uninfluenced, Rahul Ishwar, by their family? I mean, are you seriously telling me these young girls are not influenced by their families or not forced by their families to wear the hijab? That is also imposition.
Yeah, Sakaji, 3 submissions. One, let us not pretend that this is a simple issue. This is a very complex, multi-layered issue. First, beyond religion, beyond politics, everyone in the world should stand with Mahasi Amini, who unfortunately died. She was only 22. She was subjected to morality police and their death. It is absolutely horrible, horrifying, and we should stand together. Second, I am a proud Hindu, religious conservative myself. I respect my fellow Muslim conservatives. At the same point of time, I would always urge them, if we are being over conservative, if you are being over orthodox, it will backfire big time. The third point, see, any kind of protest is definitely welcome, but please remember the position of Mahatma Gandhi, our father of the nation, who in 1947, Fatehpur Sikri said, Holy Quran only mentions modesty. It doesn't mention any particular dress code. It only mentions, modesty for both male and female, and not any dress code. So it's a multi-layered issue. On one level, it is ethical issue. On one level, it is identity assertion. On some levels, it is politics. On some level, it is human rights. So it's a very complex issue. But let us don't forget one thing, because any person has a right to wear anything in India, and we should, or anywhere around the world, and we should respect that. Any kind of imposition, either by the family or by the state, should definitely be discouraged. But at the same point of time, when you are burning or when you are having such a confrontational attitude, it may backfire big time too. So you have to win the hearts and minds of the people.
Okay.
If you believe in reform, we have to take them forward slowly. Burning or confrontational attitude will only backfire, and especially Muslim community may not be receptive to such a thing.
No, I want to ask Nishat Ghazala, and then I'll go to Barzeen Wagmar after that. Nishat Ghazala, the fact remains that the Karnataka High Court ruled that hijab is not an essential religious practice. In the Supreme Court, it was a split verdict. In fact, the Muslim side is not even arguing for ERP, hijab as part of ERP in the Supreme Court. If it is not an essential religious practice, and this whole freedom of choice argument, like I said, you can't say, state is imposing on the one side, but family is not imposing. That's a false equivalence that's being brought forth. So if the freedom of choice argument is also being busted, my simple submission and my simple question to you is, how can any progressive feminist woman agree that a regressive patriarchal construct, or justify a regressive patriarchal construct by using the freedom of choice argument?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Well, as far as I am an example, I'm been wearing a headscarf, and right now I am able to perform all my duties. However, a question was raised regards to the modesty as well. So in Islam, it's clearly mentioned for a woman, hijab is her modesty. And according to the Indian law also, as we have a freedom right of wearing our dress codes or whatever we wanted to perform, either it's a task or we are free to do whatever we require to. Means we are free to practice a religion as well. So coming a question at why a woman cannot wear hijab, or how can a hijab influence her task or her career, or it can be distraction for the other people, I am not at all agree to this point, because I've been an example. I have seen many of the people who are working with me, they did not even realize that it's a distraction for them. Either I am wearing a hijab.
No, I think you're missing the argument. The argument here simply is you are free to wear the hijab or any other costume as long as you're an adult and you have freedom to choose what you want to wear in any part of public sphere, except in an institution where there is a prescribed uniform. Tomorrow, if you are one second. Tomorrow, if you are selected, let's say, to the Indian Army or you're selected as a fighter pilot, you cannot say that I will enter the cockpit only wearing a hijab, or I will take part in the march past only wearing a hijab. I mean, where in an institution where there is a prescribed uniform, in this case schools and degree colleges, you follow the uniform.
All right, yeah. As for the uniform code is maintained. Wearing a scarf is not distracting or not, spoiling the uniform.
No, it's nobody is arguing whether it's distracting or spoiling. It's a question of if it is a uniform, it is uniform. It applies to all individuals who are part of that institution. You can't have certain individuals deciding, okay, we have to wear scarves because our religion prescribes it, whereas for the rest of the institution, you're following the uniform. That doesn't work.
True.
No, as far as what my understanding is, wearing a headscarf does not impact anything regards to the uniform or dress code.
No,
this should be considered, because India is a multi-secular country wherein we can see many religion coming together. They do have their own practices, which we also see.
No, but those religious practices are not happening inside the four walls of a school or inside the four walls of a college. You are free to undertake whatever religious practice you want at your home or in a temple or wherever in public sphere, but not inside the four walls of a school. But anyway, I want to go to Barzeen Wagmar.
Yeah. Okay,
Once again, let me go to Barzeen Wagmar, who's been waiting patiently. The point is, all around the world, Barzeen, over the last couple of months, including here in India, women have come out and stood in solidarity with the women who are protesting in Iran. And yet, what we are seeing from the regime there is, I think last week they acted against 1,000 women who had taken part in these different protests, basically bringing on this chilling effect that if you were to dare to take on the Ayatollahs, then this is the price to pay.
That is the price, I'm afraid, which Iranians are paying in blood. As I speak, about 300 Iranians have been killed and 14,160 have been imprisoned. And their parents don't know what's happened to these youth in question. Picking up the strands of what has been discussed today, let me also say 2 months on, Mr. Jacob, the stunning, deplorable silence of Western feminists who are primarily leftists, who do not want to talk about something like Iran, but are more than happy to bang on about America or the West and so-called imperialist iniquities. Because the left has come to this insidious agenda that any discussion or any omissions or commissions of the Middle East or the Muslim world, including Muslim patriarchy that is being discussed here, engendered Muslim patriarchy, ought not be discussed or dilated upon, lest one engenders Islamophobia, which is, of course, arrant nonsense. But that is what has come to be the mainstay in warped leftist thinking. Feminists, but also leftists of both genders across the spectrum, across at least sitting here in the West, who will always give a wide berth to Iran and to other regimes because somehow they are anti-Western, and that therefore dovetails with their warped worldview of anti-imperialism and anti-Americanism and the like. Your Indian gentleman made a very perceptive point. You see, what has happened in Kerala today is extremely encouraging, but it will not go unnoticed in Tehran, Mr. Jacob, and I'll tell you this. Iran, and as a police state, is used to having demonstrations outside embassies and the like, and they can turn on and turn off the public temper of the street. They've always done that with their paid-up hoodlums and thugs. And they did this after Article 370's rescission also, if you remember, in 2019. And Khamenei is on record making remarks about Kashmir's accession to India and Kashmir's belonging to India even before Article 370.
Okay.
So they will no doubt try and find a sore point with the Indians and try to encourage and stoke aspects on that. Which is not to say that protests and honorable protests of this sort should not take place in Kerala. But that gentleman of yours in India who made that point, the South Indian gentleman, I wanted to back up on what he says, because it will not go unnoticed in Iran, and they will immediately pick up and play on it.
No, so I want to ask Brinda Adige, one of the points that Barzan made.
That's the operandi of a police state regime, which of course Iran has always been.
I think one of the points that Barzan
1979.
made is absolutely valid, that when you take on a regressive, patriarchal construct like the hijab, then suddenly there is this cabal of people who rush in to say, oh, this is Islamophobic. I mean, this would have been anti-feminist even in Hinduism or in Christianity. I mean, what is anti-feminist should be condemned by feminists across the world. Brinda.
Zaka, if the woman chooses to wear a hijab, whether it is because of her religion or custom or whatever, let her wear it. It is her choice. You spoke about a uniform. Why does that school want to have a uniform with salwar kameez and dupatta? Why not skirt and blouse? Why not pant and shirt? Why not a pinafore? Why not a kaftan? The school chose you must wear salwar kameez with dupatta. So what is that regressive? Is that not a regressive practice? So let's ask this question. If that dupatta is worn on the shoulder or around your head and face, how does it harm any other student in the school? You decide that she cannot make a choice how she wants to wear the dupatta. She can call it a hijab.
No. One second. Brinda. The issue is not as simple as where you're wearing the dupatta. Are you wearing it over your head? Are you wearing it over your neck? That's not the issue. Let's be very, very clear. The reason why that dupatta is being worn over the head is for a religious reason, not for educational purposes.
Why is the dupatta there at all? It doesn't add to the education anyway.
No. So that way you can argue why have uniforms at all? Let's not have uniforms.
Yes,
how does uniform contribute?
Uniforms?
How does uniform contribute to education? The issue is not that. Brinda. One second, Brinda. I think we are confusing the issue. The issue is if you have an institution, in this case a school or a degree college, and that institution has certain rules. If you want to be part of that institution, if you want to be a member of that institution, you have to follow the rules of that institution. Otherwise, you're free to be not part of that institution. Nobody is stopping you. You can very well not enroll in those schools which have prescribed uniforms. Absolutely.
This is a government institution that has no such restrictions until that MLA came in and decided that this is Islamophobe,
if there are prescribed uniforms in an institution, then every member of that institution has to follow that prescribed uniform. Again, I'm coming back to the question that I asked you, and I'll get Rahul Ishwar also to weigh in. Rahul Ishwar, you heard Barzan saying that this will not go unnoticed in Iran. Now the question is, in Kerala, the largest Muslim political party is the IUML. I have not heard from any leader of any consequence from the Muslim League come out in the last 2 months or in the last 1 year, since this hijab controversy has been raging on in this country, to come out and say that, look, the women of the community must decide. If there are some women in the community who don't want to wear a hijab, we should respect that. I have not heard that from anybody from the IUML.
Saka, two submissions. One, I believe Barzin should be applauded for what he said about the double standard of the so-called woke left, who has double standards when it comes to what their political, regarding hijab, according to their political ideology, whether it is in West or in India. That's a brilliant point. Second, as you rightly said, it's a very tricky issue down Kerala. We have 27% of our Muslim brothers and sisters here. A prominent Muslim organization called MES, Muslim Educational Society, led by Dr. Fasal Ghafoor, has banned the use of hijab or completely wearing parda in their institutions, there are multiple shades of opinion. IUML, which is a very respectable organization led by the Honorable Tangal family, is treading a very cautious approach into it. But the larger point is, if we want to push reform, if we want to inspire reform, we have to inspire it in an inclusive way. Like Bursin earlier said, like I earlier pointed out, any provocative thing only will backfire. We all know what happened to Mahseen is absolutely horrendous. We as humanity, beyond religion, nationality and politics, should feel ashamed. So we should have a gentle way of shaking the world. Like Gandhiji said, if you can gently shake the world can really move. So that gentle shaking is what is needed. Over confrontation will only backfire. It will empower the Islamists. It will empower and encourage and energize the hardliners. So in that gentle way, I hope our Muslim sisters can shake the world and the world will listen to them.
No, so let me ask Zeenat Shaukat Ali. I mean, again, why is this argument always put forth about Islamophobia? Because no one is stopping women from wearing the hijab, either in public transport or in public spheres, in malls, parks, beaches, etc. It's only when you're within the four walls of an institution which has a prescribed uniform that you have to follow that uniform. So the idea or this argument of Islamophobia simply does not cut.
Absolutely correct. And I support that. As a matter of fact, when the High Court judgment said that there should be no form of religious symbolism, this entire thing comes because, it has been sort of accepted and brought about by the clergy that this is a religious requirement and it is you must be fulfilled in this fashion. So the whole thing is that because of this kind of mental setup and this kind of approach and attitude which even the parents adopt towards the children, I think the entire understanding is going the other way around. In India, do we, when the High Court said that we should have uniforms in the classrooms, and they said with no religious symbolism, the question we have to ask, otherwise in India, are classrooms going to become the new arena for competitive communalism? Because somebody else will say that I want to wear an orange scarf, somebody else will say I want to wear another form of expression. And this is the way that I want to express myself. So I think the uniform in the school is important for many reasons. And, as very correctly pointed out, that if that school doesn't suit you, you cannot bend the institution for individuals.
Surely you can apply for another school. Anyway, but Barzan, I'll give you the final word, 30 seconds. Is this the end of this story? Because like we've been saying, for the last 2 months, there have been protests across Iran and across the world. In fact, women have been coming out and supporting their Iranian colleagues. But will this story just die a natural death?
No, I do not believe this time it will. And I certainly hope it leads to a groundswell of change. Remember, Mr. Jacob, it was Iran which became a regressive society in 1979 with the Islamic Revolution, and the Middle East has been downhill since. It would be nothing if not admirable to see Iran actually unshackling itself from this unrepresentative regime imposed on its population and its people for the last 43 years, and to get rid of this mullocracy.
All right, I've got to leave it at that. I'm completely out of time. I want to thank all our guests, Burzain, Rahul Ishwar, Binda Adige, Zeenat Shaukat Ali, and also Nishat for joining us. I'm going to go to this piece of breaking news. This is a big one that's coming in from the United States. Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, he's urged voters in the United States to back Republicans in the upcoming midterm polls. He has tweeted to independent-minded voters, shared power curbs the worst excesses of both parties. Therefore, I recommend voting for a Republican Congress, given that the presidency is Democratic. Is he being disingenuous for shared power? Because let's face it, Elon Musk now controls the biggest public square in the world. And for the owner of that biggest public square, which is Twitter, to take a public position, back one party over another, I'm not sure that augurs well. Let me go across to Pallavi Ghosh, who's joining us. Pallavi, so there are defendants and there are proponents here. Where is it okay for Elon Musk, as the person who is controlling the biggest public square in the world and this whole murky circumstances in which he's acquired this platform, to openly back one political party in the name of curbing the excesses of power?
It's not okay simply for the fact, he himself has been making the point that it has to be a level playing field. You cannot take sides. No one should be taking sides on any social media platform, and certainly Twitter. And in fact, Zaka, the entire idea of a blue tick, which was mooted by him, is the basis behind that is simply this, that, there are going to be no favorites. Everyone will have free access to it. And therefore, someone who's traditionally been known to lean a little bit towards the Republic, and also interesting now is going to weigh out whether it's going to have ramification on the restoration of the Twitter handle of Donald Trump as well, whether this will have an impact on that. Though on record, Elon Musk has denied, saying that we're going to go case by case and only on merit. But for someone like who is stepping into a business like Twitter, which is facing a lot of turmoil, to clearly take sides in the middle of the midterm polls in US, it could have important political business ramifications as well.
All right, we'll leave it at that. This, of course, has huge political ramifications, and of course, is ongoing cleanup, as it were, in Twitter. This could have ramifications for that as well. That's a wrap. On the other side, a special edition of News Epicenter live from Battleground, Himachal Pradesh.